Lakers, they are who they are, right? They're probably going to be a play-in team, and they might even miss the playoffs. So let's just talk about ED. First off, what's going on with Anthony Davis isn't funny. Okay, Anthony Davis sprained his ankle against Utah in like the second quarter. So far this season, he's had a MCL sprain on his ankle. He got back from that. He was out like 2 months. Got back from that. He had a wrist injury. So far, Anthony Davis this season, he's had an MCL sprain on his ankle, and he's had a wrist injury. And the wrist injury happened literally when he got back from that ACL sprain that kept him out 2 months. There's nothing Anthony Davis can do to avoid injuries. He can take care of his body all he can. I just don't believe this stuff isn't in their control. I seen on Twitter this guy, he's a millionaire. I don't understand how he gets injured so often. My man, do you think millionaires don't get ankle sprains? Like, you play basketball at your local YMCA, the next morning, you're hurting to get out of bed. These guys are playing professional sports, and unfortunately, in professional sports, injuries just happen. I don't think Anthony Davis wants to be hurt and miss games all the time. It's just really unfortunate. His body, I don't want to say his body's breaking down. He's 28 years old. I feel like he can get this figured out. I don't know everything that he can do to avoid injury. Doing yoga, stretching, all those things, I'm sure he's doing. And I'm sure LeBron James has told him or has given him some advice to help his body. But at the end of the day, injuries, sometimes they just can't be avoided. And sometimes some guys just have worse injuries or just more injury prone. Sometimes some guys are just more injury prone. Look at Derrick Rose. That's why I wanted to talk about Anthony Davis, because he reminds me so much of Derrick Rose. Now, I will say for Anthony Davis, though, in his defense of Derrick Rose, he had 2-3 good seasons. And after that, he just couldn't get back on the court. But it's really starting to remind me of, is this giving me deja vu of the Bulls organization? Because every time he got hurt, all I heard was, just wait until Derrick Rose comes back. Derrick Rose comes back, this team is going to be really good. And he would come back and play a little bit, but he just wasn't the same guy. So here's what I can maybe see happening. And I want Anthony Davis to be healthy, but it's past the point of this is annoying, where it's getting to the point of concerning for me. And I'm looking at Anthony Davis, who has 3 years left on his 5-year deal, and he has a player option in 2024, in the 2024 season, right? LeBron has 1 year left on his deal. Anthony Davis doesn't have a no trade clause. Neither does LeBron, but they're not trading both those guys, okay? That's just not going to happen. They're going to wait to see how this thing plays out. But I think you give AD 1 more year to figure this out, see if he can stay healthy. And let's say AD can turn his injury misfortune around. He would be the one to carry the Lakers organization when LeBron leaves. That would put him at 30 years old, which should be the peak of his prime. He still should be able to give you 3-4 more years maybe. That's really stretching it with that injury history. I'm just saying, if he can turn these injury misfortunes around, obviously the Lakers want to keep Anthony Davis and pair another superstar with him when LeBron leaves. That will open up cap space. But with the way that his injuries are trending at this moment, as you get older, obviously your body doesn't do better with injuries. So what could happen? Let's say that he's still relatively injured. Let's say Anthony Davis can give you 50 games out of the year. He can give you 50 regular season games. So what you do, in my opinion, what you do is you ask less of him, right? As a basketball player. Get rebounds, play defense, get offensive alley-oops, putbacks, things like that. That would probably be ideal if he wants to stay in LA when LeBron leaves, right? If he wants to stay in LA and his injuries don't get better, this is maybe something he can take to the organization and be like, hey, I know I'm, just injury prone, X, Y, and Z. Here's what I can still offer. I would like to stay here in Los Angeles. And I mean, you're not going to pay a guy $80 million to get some rebounds and play defense, right? So Anthony Davis is going to have to take a pay cut, and then you're going to pair him with someone who can take the offensive burden off of him. Okay, so like that to me is the most realistic option because of how bad AD continues to be hurt. I do not want the Lakers to end up how the Bulls were. Craig, if you're listening to this, no offense whatsoever. It's just the Bulls were a really good team. They were a great team. They had championship aspirations. And Derrick Rose could never stay healthy. And I just remember the fan base. It was always a thing. If we can just get Derrick Rose back healthy, we'll be fine. And it just gave you false hope. And I don't want that. We won a title in 2020. Again, that meant a lot to not only the fans, but also the city of Los Angeles, who was going through COVID. Kobe just died. It was just a terrible time. The 2020 championship season meant a lot. I have so much gear from that championship run. It really meant so much. AD hit a great shot in the Western Conference Finals. So I hope that this whole thing, the last 2 years, has just been unlucky. I think the Lakers overreacted over the summer. I literally have a episode on my Facebook page. It's called, and it's even on here, called LA Offseason. What should the Lakers do? I literally said, go get DeMar. I don't want Westbrook. I understand the plan. I understand what they wanted to get from Westbrook. Another superstar that can carry the burden when LeBron and AD eventually they're not playing 82 games. They're just not. So I understand. I just think that there was a better deal, or you just keep all those guys and maybe make a move or two, right? So hopefully the Lakers can turn things around. Let's move on and talk about the 75th anniversary, the top 75 players in the NBA, right? A lot of people like to get into the debate of like who's the GOAT. And I obviously, when I was a kid, me and my friends would argue about Kobe versus LeBron. Like that was the thing. We would get into arguments. Probably wouldn't talk to each other for weeks because, it was LeBron and a Kobe thing, right? Now it's LeBron and MJ. And I will say, I feel like what happened with Kobe, his passing, really changed Michael Jordan. I don't think that you would see Michael Jordan embracing every single one of these basketball players like he did at the All-Star game over the weekend. So the conversation of like the best player, who's the GOAT, I used to do that all the time. Me and my friends would, we would debate about this, and these are fun conversations. As I've gotten older, I think I'm starting to think about things maybe a little too deeply than what they really are. So I feel like the GOAT conversations, while they are fun to talk about, and they are, I mean, it's sports, so you're going to be like, who's better than this guy? He's better at X, Y, and Z. But sometimes when you're at the level of Kobe, Jordan, and LeBron, I feel like it alienates these guys to the point that they don't want to talk to each other. So, like, I've never seen Jordan embrace LeBron like he did with Kobe, right? And if you're in here like, well, that's because LeBron, like, dude, please don't be that guy. So Jordan, over the All-Star break, he went up to LeBron and they embraced and they were talking, and you can actually hear some of the stuff that they were talking about. And I think what Jordan was saying, because he told him, he's like, just hang in there. So I think he was telling him, like, the season isn't really going with how you want. Just hang in there. And then he said at the end of their conversation, he's like, if there's anybody that can do it, I know you can. And I feel like that could either be two things. That could either have been him talking about Bronny, like, hey, you want to play with your son? I think that's great. If there's anybody that can do something like that, it's you. Or he was encouraging him to break the record, the points record. I loved that. I loved seeing two of the greatest players of all time having that embrace and just, good conversation. And I know Jordan was ready to play Magic Johnson in a one-on-one game. Like, Jordan, you're 60 years old. I don't know if anyone's seen it. He was like, "You got your shoes? You got your shoes? Let's go on the court. Let's play one-on-one right now." If you look at that video and look at his face, Jordan wasn't kidding. He was so serious. The dude is an insane competitor. So the whole point of me really bringing up this top 75 list, I'm not really going to get into who's the best player of all time. I don't want to get into those things. I will do like my top 5 list at some point. Maybe I'll save it for like the 100th episode, right, for this podcast. But what I really wanted to talk about was someone who I find odd is on the list. So my friend Craig tagged me in an article, and the article is basically about the top 75 players of all time, players that got snubbed, players that should have been on it. And as I was going through it, I thought I seen pretty much like everyone who was in it, right? But Dame Lillard is on the top 75 team, and I don't understand why. You got guys like Kyrie Irving, Dwight Howard. We can really just talk about how Dwight Howard, me and my friend Lucas were actually just talking about this. Dwight Howard was a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and I do believe that context matters. Dwight Howard led an Orlando team with Jameer Nelson, Hedo Turkoglu. He led them to the finals. On his way to the finals, he beats a Cleveland Cavaliers team. He beats a Boston Celtics team. Like, that alone gets you in there. But let's just talk about Kyrie Irving and Dame Lillard. Let's just say they wanted 2 guards, right? Let's just talk about Kyrie Irving and Dame Lillard. I find it odd that Dame Lillard is in there over Kyrie Irving, and I'm not really too big on the stats. Like, these guys, if you look at their stats. One guy averages 24 points per game versus 27 the other guy puts up. Again, stats are important. I get it, don't get me wrong, but context matters when we talk about this stuff. Kyrie Irving and Dame Lillard both shoot around the same field goal percentage, around the same. Like, it's like 2% difference between the two. And it's the same thing with the 3-point percentage. They shoot around the same. So when you're looking at these two, you have to look at what they've done in their careers. Kyrie Irving has been to 3 finals. He was injured in one of them. And honestly, they could have won that. That same year, Kevin Love and Kyrie were injured. And LeBron took the Golden State Warriors to like 6 games. Just by himself. So there's a great chance that they could have won that. Okay. But he ended up winning one. He hit a big shot against Steph Curry, right? A clutch shot. If he doesn't get hurt in that first finals matchup, you could definitely say he could have 2 rings. Context matters. Dame Lillard has never been in a Western Conference Finals game, man. And he's a great player. Dame is a great player. But Dame has done nothing. Dame Lillard has done nothing but score a bunch of points. And I'll also say this. He can talk all he wants about not joining a super team and how he wants to grind it out. And he wants to build something in Portland. And that's great. Like, that is great. I would love to see more basketball players have that mindset, right? But I could also make a case that you're running away from the grind. You want to stay in Portland. I don't think you'll ever have championship level aspirations from that fan base. The fans are never going to expect you to win a title. If you get Portland to the Western Conference Finals a couple times out of your career, they'll celebrate you there. There is literally no pressure playing in Portland. There's none. There's none at all. Not like in LA, not like in Boston, not like if you play for the Spurs or even the 76ers. Anything like that. There's championship level expectations there. Okay? So, no. Dame does not belong on the top 75 team over Kyrie Irving, over Dwight Howard. So, guys, this is actually like my 6th episode. I appreciate everyone that's listening, that's sharing it. If you listen just one time, it actually helps with ads, things like that. So I really appreciate it.